Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have Tanner Jones, Vice President of Consultwebs, and we'll be talking about predicting the future of digital marketing for attorneys. Thank you, Tanner, for being with us today again.
Very glad to be here again, Ken. Thank you.
Yeah. So, just got through with another mastermind down in San Diego, or west of here, San Diego. And a lot of chatter about the web and digital and how TV's, still working, but not nearly as good as it used to, and how some law firms are just going all digital. Some people are pulling out of TV. So things are changing. I can tell you that for sure. But as we come out of this pandemic, I guess we're coming out of it. What can you say one lesson attorneys should have learned from coming out of the pandemic, Tanner?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one lesson there. Hopefully there were more than just one lesson, learned during and even after the pandemic. You mentioned change, and that's inevitable. Ken, I know, we could look back a decade ago to some of the presentations we've delivered at Pilma Summits, for example, and talking about, I think one of the presentations we named it Painting the Moving Train. Referring to Google. It's constantly evolving and changing. There was a quote recently by Warren Bennis that suggested that in life, change is inevitable, but in business, change is vital. And that's really what I would encourage attorneys who have gone through this pandemic and still have a business, that still have clients to serve. What's that one lesson that I think that they have learned consistently? It's around customer service. So what do I mean by that? Customer service obviously has always been imperative for businesses, but how customers prefer to be served is what's evolving. And it doesn't take much effort when you look around at other businesses or other industries outside of legal. How many businesses had to evolve or pivot during the pandemic? Let's look at the restaurant business. The restaurant business obviously had to do some dramatic thinking, creative thinking, outside the box thinking, and implement on the fly, many of which pivoted and started carry out orders more significantly. They started finding creative, like changing their parking lot even to allow people to pull in, make orders, deliver the food outside, and send them on their way. Well, if you drive around today in most cities, you're going to find that there's still a majority of business for restaurants being sold through takeout orders. The market has evolved. The market has changed. And if you're a law firm who feels like, yes, you finally made it back to the office, you're finally finding some normalcy, I would encourage you to take a breath and rethink that, because I don't think that consumers are going to go back to normalcy. So what does all that mean? That I think attention spans are decreasing. There's no question about that. Shorter video content is now more engaging than ever. Some of the recent case studies we've found illustrates that attention spans have dropped to less than 8 seconds. Google has other data that suggests it's even shorter than that. So that alone makes your site's first impression more important than ever. So those are the things that I would encourage attorneys to be thinking about for those who are still struggling to come away with a lesson learned. That, I believe, is where a lot of the front-running law firms, they've seen it, they've noticed it, and they've implemented changes in an effort to continue to serve their clients. It means virtual consultation should continue to be front and center on your Google profile, on your website, on your Contact Us page, stressing that in your live chats. Every time someone is engaging with your firm, ensure that they know that you can still continue to operate virtually. Some consumers, some clients still prefer that. Streamlining the intake process, offering e-signing capabilities, overall embracing technology for the benefit of the client, for the ease of use of the client, for the conveniency of the client. All of those factors are going to help law firms continue to thrive as consumer experiences and consumer preferences have changed.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, yeah, from the marketing standpoint, yeah, and just even just the management side, more and more people, are wanting to work from home. And, I live in Myrtle Beach. There's just thousands and thousands of people moving down here from out west and up north saying, hey, I'm working remote. I can work from anywhere. I want to be down here where it's cheaper to live, warmer, And I think lawyers, what we're seeing in PILMA is that a lot of lawyers are going more remote with their workforce, not completely, but a lot more, and even going out of country more than they ever would have thought about before. So things you have to change. You have to be adaptable. That's part of being successful. I was reading a book the other day, and one of the keys to success is being able to adapt. Adaptability. You cannot just dig in your heels and say, this is the way we do it. This is the way granddaddy did it. This is the way daddy did it. This is the way I'm going to do it. Nah, you won't survive. You will not survive.
I agree.
That's for sure. So if someone, is in the market for a new website, what would be your advice? Or they want to upgrade their look. Like I'm getting ready to upgrade one of our websites now. I feel like it looks a little too old. It's not hip. It's not clean enough or whatever. What advice would you have for somebody that's getting ready to do that? Either do a complete new website or upgrade their old ones.
Sure.
I call it a facelift, whatever you call it. I don't know what you call it.
Well, I mean, and it could be more extensive. Some firms are looking just to update the homepage, for example, feeling like it's getting stale, or maybe there are legitimate reasons, like very tangible, very practical things that just simply need to be updated. Change in partnership, you need new attorney photos, or maybe it's the site speed is completely fallen off. And I'll talk through a few of those examples, but whatever the reason, if you're considering or contemplating a new website or a facelift of a site, there are definitely some fundamental things you want to consider in today's era, especially as we're talking about coming out of this pandemic, what do consumers want today? So if you're in that process, today's modern designs are clean. There's a lot of white space built in. What does that mean? White space is just simply breaking the page up, breaking the content, breaking the imagery up, and using the full width and the full length of the design and screen so that it's easy for a user to navigate from one section to the next. Understanding what's most important to your clientele as related to your business is also important. For example, knowing what your top traffic pages are as related to actual leads and cases that you're interested in. So obviously, if you're getting traffic to a page that's obscure and not closely relevant to your business, may be a good time to actually close that page down entirely as part of a redesign if it's not helping to drive relevant traffic in. But once you prioritize those top pages, make sure that they're accessible from the homepage. That's one of the biggest mistakes a lot of law firms make, is that they don't make some of these most important pages prominent and just easily navigable from the homepage. Attorney bios are often the top pages visited on a law firm website. If you're having to scroll all over your website and search from the top to bottom just to find attorney bios, you are missing a significant opportunity to drive prospective clients directly into those bios to get to know you so that they can hire you. So that's a good tip there. Fundamentally, again, you want to also look at how are you representing your brand and your employees and your entire staff to the public. Custom photography and really good video that represents your brand well are game changers when it comes to being able to differentiate your law firm when someone comes to your website and ultimately convince them to pick up the phone and call you. Photography would be examples of like more candid style shots, action shots, walking into your office, giving an impression of the nature of the law firm. If you have attorneys that are showing up, from dawn till dusk, giving that visual, that they're pulling in when the sun hasn't even risen. They're pulling into the office, getting out of their car, walking in the office, leaving as the sun's going down. Those are powerful visuals that you can represent in a brand video that get a message across much, much better than words by themselves. And personality is also something that individuals are looking for. They want to know who it is that's behind the firm. And what do you sound like? What do you look like? These are all things that you can absolutely be delivering before they call into the office, and you should. So make sure that that's built into your redesign and not just the homepage. build out those internal practice area pages with good custom photography and or video, as well as your bio pages and your contact us page. That'll ensure, again, that you're getting across that personalization experience before they've even entered the office. Another thing that a lot of law firms are starting to really catch on to, but there's still a healthy percentage of firms missing the boat, and that's around including social proof within their designs. Any kind of awards or rewards, any kind of accolades, whatever it is that you've, any kind of experiences that have shaped your attorneys, that made them who they are, that should be represented throughout the website, and especially within the most relevant sections or practice area pages as related to that particular victory or accomplishment. Verdicts and settlements, another great example, something that hopefully you already have listed alongside relevant practice area copy, but a great way to build trust and confidence. Keep in mind that today, especially with this pandemic, it's forced more people online than ever before. People are more comfortable searching online than ever before for professional businesses and everything in between. And so being able to embrace that by delivering that social proof, showing them that you are the best of the best when it comes to this particular area, will help to ensure that your page remains sticky and helps them to convert. Last but not least, there are testimonials, written and video, incorporating those throughout the website. Ken, I've used this saying time and time again, but it burned into my brain when you said it years ago. And that's, it's what you say about yourself is good. What others say about you is gold. And I think that is so true. We've seen it proven time and time again with web data. And I would encourage you to ensure that you are leveraging testimonials on the site. A couple other pieces here with regard to the website. Digital accessibility is becoming a big topic. Color contrast, for example, ADA compliance. These are topics that are coming up now more and more when they suggest that 1 in 4 Americans, 1 in 4 users online have some certain disability, and many of which are visually impaired disabilities. And so being able to cater to the design to those with disabilities, particularly color contrast issues, making sure that that's being intentionally looked at as part of the design, ensuring that you don't have, for example, yellow and gold or yellow and white close beside each other and making it difficult to read text on a similar colored background. Those are examples that can obviously be avoided, but today we are still seeing law firm websites with these issues. And in turn, you are not compliant, ADA compliant. A couple other examples that you can leverage would be any kind of imagery you have throughout the website, ensuring you have alt text applied to that. It's basically giving descriptive language to what those images represent. And then any videos you have, obviously ensuring you have those transcribed and having descriptions built out there, and also descriptive labels within your contact forms. All factors that influence digital accessibility and will continue to be extremely important as we close out the year. And then site speed, something we've stressed for years now, still critically important. Google Page Speed Insights is a great tool you can use just to see how quickly your site's loading on mobile and desktop. And you can also check out Core Web Vitals from Google to evaluate any other issues that your site may be experiencing. Load time has been such a big important factor, and a lot of websites struggle with it. And the reason this is important, Google suggests that if a page load time increases from 1 second to 3 seconds, for example, your bounce rate will increase by 32%. More dramatically, if your load time increases from 1 to 6 seconds, bounce rate would then increase by 106%. And so this is a dramatic loss that law firms are facing just because of site speed issues. All can be fixed as part of a redesign and things you should consider. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. So what was the 2 sites they can go to if they want to check out their site speed on their mobile and on their desktop?
Yeah, they just simply go to Google and type Page Speed Insights, and you can click the link at the top there and put in your URL. You can also search Core Web Vitals and do the same. Enter in your URL and see the free report that Google will provide.
Is there, I know it used to be, I remember you used to say you had to be under 3 seconds. Is it changed? You got to be under 2 seconds now, or is it being under 3 is still good?
Being under 3 is still good. I mean, it's going to vary, obviously, based on connection speeds and things like that. The biggest factor is looking at that. I referenced the page speed insights tool, being able to keep an eye on that, ensuring that speed score, it's out of 100. Ideally, it's not falling below 70 out of 100. If it drops below 70, that is definitely worth getting your web development team, whoever maintains your website, to take a look to identify whatever it is that's causing the speed issues, and they can go in there and fix that. It is an ongoing management process, though.
So here's something I want to talk to you about. I think you talk about this in your report, and we're going to talk about this 2022 legal marketing trends and predictions resource. I've actually read it this morning, getting ready for this interview, this podcast. Great stuff in there. But cookies, how can lawyers prepare for a cookie-less world? Mm-hmm. And you might want to explain to our listeners or viewers out there what are cookies, how they work, and the companies that are changing the world, platforms and deals, and how this is going to affect us, and what can we do? Mm-hmm. This is very important, very important.
It is important. And, honestly, this is it's somewhat of a complex topic. It's a technical topic, and a lot of lawyers tend to, from my experience, they're not paying attention to this as closely as they should. A lot of law firms have advertised on Facebook, for example. A lot of law firms have advertised on Google. Those are the two major advertising platforms that most advertisers, even outside of the legal profession, obviously know about. Well, over the couple of past years, a growing red hot topic has been around the idea of privacy and who has access to my data as a consumer. If I'm going to Facebook, who's taking that data and who is Facebook selling that data to and allowing them to advertise to me? Well, Apple, if you recall, made a pretty big stance. I believe it was last year in 2021 with the privacy update that they implemented. Now, that was a major update, and it kind of started this process of big companies finally starting to get a little bit of a spotlight in arguably a negative way, and that these big companies were selling private data. They were using cookies basically being the term that's allowing users, or platforms rather, to track users and their activities, what websites you visit on a regular basis, how much time you spent on certain websites, what are you searching for online, what videos are you watching. A lot of that data that ultimately tells what kind of consumer you are, so that those big platforms know exactly what to advertise to you and exactly what time. That data is going away. That's why it's important. By the end of 2023, Google is now planning to officially stop supporting third-party cookies on its Chrome web browser. Many other browsers are likely to follow suit, and this is effectively going to end 2 decades of companies using this type of data for hyper-targeted advertising. That's why it's so big. That's why it's so important. And that's why we're screaming it from the rooftop that lawyers need to be aware of this and what it means. So what does it mean to the individual law firm? We are suggesting that you should become a data company. And that may seem odd. It may seem strange. You're a law firm, you're offering legal services. You certainly don't want to get into the data business. What do we mean by that? Specifically, you want to begin gathering your own data if you haven't already. Many of you are likely sitting on a treasure chest of data with respect to prior call-ins, all clients that have signed up, where they live. Potentially you have other information like birthdays, occupation, etc. That's all potentially useful data for you. Consultwebs, our group, we have the advantage of working with hundreds of law firms over the years, and particularly managing, in this case, Facebook campaigns in our agency account, where we've collected significant demographic and user data, persona type data, to reach and market prospective clients on Facebook. That is direct first-party data that we have access to. That is a huge advantage as a quote-unquote data company, to be able to then use that data to remarket to others with similar personas and demographics. And that's something where law firms will have to lean on their own ability or lean on other companies who have that data directly, as opposed to now, how we've historically leaned on some of these big juggernauts like Facebook and Google. We're not going to have that privilege anymore. The market itself has passed this. It's reported that 79% of web users today have a growing concern with how companies are using their own personal data. This is not going away. In fact, this is only going to continue this cycle of bigger companies taking a big stance on this and leaving it to the individual advertiser to be able to control their own data. This is going to mean some disruptions in the marketplace. If you've seen great success with certain ad campaigns that have relied on third-party data historically, you are in for a rude awakening unless you're able to make changes and start to control that data yourself and use the data to market yourself. So a big topic, obviously, it's somewhat difficult to be able to condense down into a few moments, but I do believe this is something that law firms should absolutely be paying attention to.
Let's talk about content. I've always heard content's king. What does that look like? Is that still the future?
We've said content is king a million times, and I still believe content is critical for a successful web campaign, especially if you're investing in any type of search campaign, like an SEO campaign. Content, especially long form written content, is going to be important. I would suggest that there's more to it than just deep content. We've been hearing the topic of video over the years, and video is a form of content. In fact, it's a growing form of content that is very, very popular with respect to how consumers are consuming content and taking in content, whether it be on your website or even on YouTube or social media. Those are all things that if you do not have a content schedule or content strategy for your firm that especially includes video, there's a strong chance you will be left behind in the coming years. So video content, not just a high impact brand video piece of content, but consumable content that offers value around your areas of expertise, your practice areas. So building out supportive content that you can embed within your main practice area pages is a great practical way to begin. Frequently asked questions you can also incorporate into the website itself, into relevant practice area pages. You can even begin to reproduce blog content or reformat blog content that you've written in prior years that have received good attention, good traffic. Turn those into video or add a video and add it to that blog article so that you've added more consumable content on that piece that's performed well over the years. Testimonial content, day in the life content, these are all things that you can produce video around. And so today, I believe that video content is what's king. Written content is a close second.
Can't you, I don't know, there's probably some other software out there, but I know we talk about it in the masterminds. There's a software called Lumen, Lumen 5. I think it's like .io or .ia or something, I'm not sure. But you can take written content, put it in the software, and it'll create videos for you. Are you familiar with that?
Very familiar, yes.
Does it work?
Yes, so it absolutely does. And it's a great way to leverage artificial intelligence. There's a lot of AI software today that's just building tons of efficiencies into content creation. What I would discourage is a law firm to lean on something like that as their exclusive content generation offering. You're right. So it's a great support. It's a great way to supplement ongoing content at a very reasonable price and basically just recycling a lot of the content you've already invested in, just in different platforms like video, for example. So I think that's a great suggestion, Ken. And ideally you have a very diversified stream of content so that you're not leaning on one singular effort, and you're ultimately using it to reach different personas, different demographics who prefer different types of media.
But how do you know what content to put on there? I mean, I've got my old-fashioned way, but I'm sure there's a better way than my old-fashioned taking a notepad out and recording all the questions everybody asks you for a month. What's a shortcut for that?
Yeah, I mean, there are tons of shortcuts. I'll start with what I've seen is just practical ways. I go back to the example of knowing what your top pages are already. if you can get a list of your top 20 pages, you may find that of those top 20, you have 10 blog articles, some of which were written 5 or 6 plus years ago. You haven't thought another thing about it, but yet it's still a high performing page on your website with little activity applied to it. That's a perfect example that illustrates people or consumers are still getting value from that piece of content. How can you enhance it? How can you take it to the next level? And in that, when you're producing the content, showcase personality. Who's within the firm? What's your mission? What are your core values? Why do you exist as a law firm? And make sure that that's being articulated alongside the value of the content. And it's a great sales tool for a law firm. Another example may be focusing on testimonials, going back to the concept of what you say is good, what others say is gold. People want to hear what other people have experienced. And so if you can get someone in and have them share their story around a particular case type, that is a powerful means of social proof that you can leverage. And even considering, are there certain prior cases that you won that you would love to do a case study on, and producing video content around that? Certainly there may be details you cannot share, but what public details can you share that represent your experience there? Very practical way to attract the right type of cases. If you're fishing very specifically, you're going to catch very specific fish. And that's how we encourage it.
How can lawyers stay ahead of the trends, Nana?
Yeah, trends. I mean, when I hear trends, I think of social media often. And I would argue that the first step to stay ahead of a trend, you need to have some savviness when it comes to social. Now, obviously, you don't need to be a social rock star or social guru or anything like that, but you absolutely need a solid social presence as a law firm and or as an individual attorney. That's where it starts, because you ultimately need that history behind you as an entity on social media to grow a following and to enable any kind of attempt to jump on a trend to be worthwhile. According to a study by the ABA, 81% of law firms today have a presence in at least one social media channel. So it's finally starting to be embraced across the industry as a whole, which is exciting. The sad part is that probably most of those 81% have no clue what's going on their social media profiles. They've just handed it off to someone. So when it comes to trends, that handing off to someone is important. It's important to have a partner, a social media partner, or at least a consultant that has their ear to the ground constantly on social media, spending time on TikTok, seeing what these trends are, these ideas or topics that are coming up, and looking to position an angle to leverage that topic as related to your firm. We had a client just recently jump on a TikTok trend of a dancing video, and it was definitely outside of their comfort zone. Even some of their trial lawyers got involved. They went around the office and grabbed quite a bit of footage, and it was incredible on TikTok. Tremendous engagement, good brand recognition that's generated from that. And I will tell you, that is the biggest reason why jumping on these trends on social media can be so effective and powerful for a law firm, because brand is everything. On social, you want to avoid being stuffy. Social is not the place to show up, like you're getting ready to present in front of a judge. Kind of let that guard down, be yourself. And that's really where you're going to take full value of leveraging trends on social media.
So what's your take on attribution? I mean, we had a big conversation on this at our last film mastermind. I mean, what I'm seeing, and I'd like to hear your take on it. A little easier on digital to track it up to a degree, but the problem is there's so many different channels now to advertise and get your word out, that how do you know which one, or do you even know, is it a combination of a bunch? Like, you can track a number on your website, right? Or you can do the analytics and see it came from Facebook. But how do you know they didn't see a billboard or TV, and then they go and look you up on the web and check you out and watch your videos? And, how do you know? I mean, it's just so much harder now than it seemed like to me it was 25 years ago when you had very few ways to advertise. I don't know.
Well, and that's just it, Ken. I mean, you said that the web actually presented some really unique advantages in that regard. When, some of these law firms, and you're one of them, who historically you've built a brand, built a presence through traditional advertising like TV, billboards. things that have largely been okay to track, but next to impossible to get perfect. And then the web came along, and you're right. We started being able to use unique call tracking numbers, being able to see specifically which pages were driving calls. But then going back to the beginning of this discussion, things changed. It evolved. And now the web has fragmented so much, and firms are continuing to invest and invest and invest in so many different places that it's next to impossible to determine the true consumer journey that a potential client took before they picked up the phone and called. In most common scenarios, law firms are looking at that final touch attribution point, that last place someone was at when they decided to, say, pick up the phone and call the office. And in most instances, they're just directly attributing whatever that source was, maybe it's the website, as the main source of the lead. Well, that's no longer the case. Clearly there's no shortage of metrics to look at online to try to determine what's working, what's not. It's just so fragmented that a lot of firms are just throwing up their hands and completely throwing out the whole idea of attribution altogether. Now, while I would discourage that dramatic of a response, I would encourage you to embrace this idea of what Google coins as the messy middle. Have you heard of that concept, Ken? The messy middle?
I am not. Teach me.
So this messy middle is this concept that Google's evaluating the overall consumer journey, how consumers are starting the process of looking for a product or a service and how they're ending that process. Well, they term it the messy middle because it's no longer linear like it used to be. Historically, and not that long ago, 10 years ago, say, users really only needed a couple touch points to have confidence in a buying or hiring decision, and they were good with it. They would call the firm up and they would hire them. Today, we have information literally at our fingertips with our mobile devices. We have more information at our disposal than ever before in history. So what's that doing to the psyche? What's that doing to the consumer mindset? More options arguably are not always best. And it can be, in many instances, overwhelming for a consumer to have so many different options, but that's the way it is. And it's only growing. We're seeing today, and this is what Google reports as part of this messy middle concept, that consumers today need well over 20 touch points of a single brand before they feel comfortable with that brand enough to hire them. So what does that mean? Law firm may have a TV ad that runs. The first time a consumer hears that ad, that's the first touch point. Consumer then goes online, they type in the name of that brand, they look through the reviews, that's the second touch point. Then they click into the website, they check out the bio page, third touch point. The boss walks in the office, they close out their browser, they have the conversation with their boss. During lunch, they're on social media, and because that law firm had remarketing cookies, they put remarketing cookie on their browser. Now they're able to show up in front of that consumer while they're on Facebook. Yet another touch point. We have to overwhelm consumers with these touch points in order to show them or give them the impression that this law firm is everywhere. They have to be trusted. And ultimately, they pick up the phone and call them when they're back at their office and go directly to their homepage after searching the firm name. Well, direct attribution or final touch attribution would imply that they already knew you and they just came to the homepage and converted. So clearly the brand did that. When in fact, the TV ad, had it not been for that, you would have never picked up that phone call. Google refers to that as the messy middle. We have no ability today to see that perfect consumer path before they pick up the phone and call you, which means that law firms have to embrace the messy middle. And how do you embrace the messy middle as a law firm? You begin to intentionally invest in a lot of things that we've been talking about already, but especially brand recognition, investing in brand in all forms of advertising, like video advertising, social. If you have the budget, obviously still investing in traditional advertising, as you referenced before, it can still be effective. But trusting that while attribution may not be perfect, you can still look at that overarching cost per lead and overarching cost per case and make a determination of success or failure and continue to evolve and test those campaigns over time. It's more challenging than ever, but the rewards are better than ever as well.
What I'm seeing is there's macro and there's micro. So you can still try to go in there and micro, and say, okay, like you were talking about, this is the last point before they pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
It still could be important because there's something on that copy, some kind of call to action or something could be what it took to make them jump and pull the trigger and take some action. But they're doing that, but then they're also just saying everything I spent on marketing, we put it all together and we see what was my cost per case. And that's including all your referrals, everything, just really looking at it and getting what's my cost? Is it going up? What's the trend? Is it going up? Is it going down? If it's going up, then I need to relook at maybe get more specific, more micro.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you. It used to, because I've always been big about numbers, and I just don't know that it's possible today to really get a really good, and you can ask people too, and they always lie. They always, maybe not in purpose, but they do. I mean, I've had people, say that they saw me on a billboard and I never did a billboard, or
Sure.
heard me on radio and I never did radio, but it's just the way it is. But it's like you say, if you get your brand out there so much, hell, they don't remember. They just know they heard it. And they hear 3,000 or, messages a day. Hell, they just don't know.
They don't.
Just don't know. It just all gooby guts together. It's what you call that messy middle.
That's the messy middle. And if you don't mind, let me clarify something, Ken, which I think is so important. I just want to ensure our listeners here, they don't interpret this conversation as though we're saying, don't worry about trying to track all the individual marketing efforts and only look at that overarching. That's not it at all. We still want to look at metrics and performance data that indicate good performance, right? And you can look at different, like, for example, a YouTube video campaign. Yes, you can get some direct attribution. You can get some direct phone calls from that, but that's not really how it's designed. It's designed to burn brand awareness in the minds of the consumers and then in turn have them search for the brand name later or recognize you when they see that social media ad. And so you can still look at those views. How many views are you earning with your ad spend every month? How many earned views, meaning are they actually listening to an ad and then clicking into your YouTube channel and earning or listening to other organic videos? Those are all metrics that you or your web team should be able to evaluate and determine whether it's trending up, staying the same, or trending down. And if you see your overarching cost per lead or overarching cost per case do something dramatic or negative, you can then go back and look at the individual metrics to see, was there an anomaly out of all these other individual campaigns we're running, which would help to describe or give us reason to the drop in leads or the drop in cases. So you can still uncover it. You can still dig in and do the research, but don't get lost in the messy middle. That's the big point.
So you're going to be speaking at our summit in June 27th through 29th at the Ritz-Carlton in New Orleans. What are you going to talk about?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about SMART goals. And so we're going to give several examples of what SMART marketing goals can be for a law firm. But more importantly, it's going to be I would say a hands-on working session where we go through giving practical examples of how you should be looking at goals for your law firm, how you should be monitoring and weighing those goals against other goals, and ultimately helping you with a blueprint on achieving more far-reaching goals for the law firm. And that's the name of the game. Goal setting is a powerful practice, and it's something that you can never perfect. You want to continue to get better and better at it. And we believe that the information we're going to share at the summit will help you expedite the process of perfecting goal setting.
Yeah, that is very interesting, and I'm looking forward to hearing it. Yeah, I've done some presentations on SMART. Whether it's specific, measurable, attributable, I can't remember it now, but time limits or whatever. But it's pretty good. It's really good. That'll be good. That'll be great. Well, listen, we've been talking today. Time's up, but I appreciate everything. A lot of stuff you talked about today, you go in a lot deeper into the weeds because I read it. This report, 2022 legal marketing trends and predictions, done by Consultwebs and your team. How can people get a copy of that? Because it's worth a good read. It's about, I think if I remember correctly, about 25 pages, 30 pages, but it's easy reading, although the stuff in it's not easy. but it's easy. Well, to do everything in there you want us to do, it's not easy. It takes work and time and some money. But how can they get their copy of it?
Sure.
Absolutely free.
Yep. It's a free resource. It's one of our most popular resources this year. We touch on a lot of growing, emerging topics for law firms, and we've just kind of scratched the surface in this discussion covering those topics. You can search, go online and search Consultwebs Trends and Predictions 2022, and it'll be linked there within Google. Certainly you can access it there. And Ken, I'm going to ask that I'll give you all a URL that you drop in to your podcast as well. Exactly. And so others can access it directly from the podcast page itself.
Great. Well, listen, thank you for taking time. I know you're busy as heck. And I look forward to seeing you in June at the summit down in New Orleans.
Excited for it. Thanks again for the opportunity, Ken.
Oh, and by the way, if they want to get it with you and follow up and dig deeper, how can they get it with you, Tanner?
Sure. Yeah. Come check us out, consultwebs.com. You can call the number there and find me that way, or feel welcome just to email me directly, tjones@consultwebs.com.
T Jones. Tanner, not Tom.
Tanner. That's right.
Right. Good deal. All right. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.